Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, one and all, and a happy Black Friday to everybody, or as Patrice would say,
Friday.
Happy Black Friday, everybody. Listen, so glad I can join you. You can join me. We can join each other on this Black Friday. It is 7:07 on Newstalk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. I am Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor. Today, my final day. Larry returns on Monday. I know he is eager to get back to you. You are eager to have him back in your good graces, in your homes, in your cars, wherever you're listening to all of us. By the way, if you've missed anything this week, because you've been engaged in your, we've had shows all week. If you missed my interview yesterday with Dean Butler,
Yes.
Almanzo Wilder from Little House on the Prairie, you can always go and check that out on the WMAL app. All of our shows are podcasted there. And even if you've heard something, if you want to go back and listen again, go and check it out on the WMAL app. Listen, we got a great show. Going to be joined in a little bit by Steve Moore from Unleash Prosperity. We've got KT McFarland, CPAC board member, former Deputy National Security Advisor, joining us as well. And D.C. political analyst Chuck Thies is going to be joining us to talk about the shooting. But we're so glad to bring on today Tony Shaffer, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, former operator himself, New York Times bestselling author of Operation Dark Heart. We're so glad you can. And Tony, listen, let me start here because I think people need to understand what guys like this shooter were doing with our troops. And we've got the Sean Parnell warning from a few years ago that you never know. You put a certain amount of trust, and then but even then you never can be 100% sure of somebody, can you?
Yeah, no, Sean. These individuals, and this is very difficult because I don't want to take and basically complain about an entire category of people,
right.
But there were people in Afghanistan, individuals like this, who were there to do specific roles. One was translator. A lot of us who went there don't speak Pashto or any of the regional languages, so they were there to help us do that. Secondly, some of them would be essentially what we call scouts. If you read Operation Dark Heart, Andrew, if you go back and look at that,
right.
Patrice, there's a chapter where I'm actually bringing a scout to Bagram to put them on an assault with the Rangers to help get them to where they need to be. There's a whole, I think, almost a full chapter on it. So that's a second category. Third, more sensitive, is essentially a clandestine asset, an espionage person, someone who goes out and actually penetrates bad guys to get inside of their organization. We would have principal agents like us. We would be the ones running them. They would be an asset who actually goes in, and they are probably the most difficult to control because their loyalties are very often questioned. And a lot of the time we would use tribal rivalries, one tribe against the other,
right?
Factions against factions. Basically, the enemy of your enemy is my friend. Things like that. So I suspect, based on what I've read, this guy was in the second and third category. He was kind of someone who was out helping CIA. He may have been someone who went out to different provinces and actually went into the bad guy organization. Basically went and tried to figure out ground truth of what was going on. And his loyalty, well, it didn't have to be to the United States. It could be to his own tribe. But he could see that the United States was helping his own tribe do something. And we saw that quite a bit. And again, another chapter in Operation Dark Heart from Afghanistan. At one point, we had one tribe lie about the location of Hekmatyar, one of the bad guys, one of the bad guy targets. And we ended up bombing a madrasa that killed women and children because it was the other tribe. So this is why this is so sensitive, so difficult. When you have this happen here, I think we have to look at, how many other folks with mixed motives or mixed loyalties are here? And I think that's what we're going to come to find. This guy had a lot of mixed loyalties behind the scenes.
Tony, can we have a sense of whether he was acting alone, if there are other people that he might have been coordinating this with? How quickly would we find that out? And even family members, people are calling for them to be deported, for example. What do you think is the right balance of understanding that not every evacuee from Afghanistan has ulterior motives, but some may very well and just may not have acted upon them yet, like this guy?
Yeah, so it's like there's a very robust and loyal Afghan population within Northern Virginia. I knew a lot of folks.
Yeah.
I actually would go to their establishments. A number of them have garages. They have small businesses.
Yes.
I love the folks. So the question becomes, how do we help? How do we ask them to help us? Because they're going to know more than we are about who the bad guys are. And it's like, look, this is in your interest to tell us who the people are who are going to make life difficult for all of us. Because it's really needed because we don't want to spy on people. So, don't do that. I know that I work for Sheriff Decatur down in Stafford County, just south of the city. He does an amazing engagement program where he goes to all of the different churches, talks to all the different folks, and outreach, I think, is the key. Is having leaders in the community come tell us, hey, here's the bad guys. Now, otherwise, to your point of who else was involved with this guy, the shooter, and how soon will we know? Well, we already know a great deal about what electronic communications were going on during the time leading up after the attack, the suspicions that someone drove him there. I've not heard any follow-up on that, but we're going to be able to have a pretty good mosaic of the guy, of who he was talking to, when he was talking to him, different locations pretty quick. So far, there's no indication that others were, quote-unquote, directly involved. It doesn't mean others were not supporting or somehow indirectly involved in getting to where he was at. So that's what we're waiting for right now, is that wider report on who he was, where he was at, who else was with him, his associates, and all that stuff. And that should come out over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Tony, listen, I'm going to do this now so it's not weird. Can you stick around for a little bit? Because I got a bunch of questions to ask you. But let's start here before we go to – yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Before we go to the break, just give us a sense as to how much we're going to peel back in terms of this guy's journey. I mean, how long is it going to take for us to figure out exactly where he stopped along the way?
Yeah. So the issue becomes – the associations of where he was at. Now, remember, this guy's been here a long time, and he was out west, and apparently a very beautiful part of Washington State, I believe, from what the report said. And he was essentially kind of living the American dream. He was living in a nice place. And there's a lot of things that really indicate that he had been given the full benefits of what every other Afghan refugee was given regarding being treated fairly, being treated as we pointed out at the beginning of the interview. These people helped us. So, if they helped us, we want to give them some safe port, some refuge where they can live their lives. And this is what it's going to be so interesting to find out what he did for the past 3 years, because he's been here for a while. Yeah. And this is where it's going to be very important to kind of peel back the layers of exactly what he was doing, who he was doing with, what was he doing for a living. I mean,
right.
But it's really going to be very difficult to figure out a pattern if we don't actually have the ability to trace it back to Afghanistan, because this is where it comes down to. Afghanistan has acknowledged, Andrew, as you know, that this guy worked for him.
Right.
Well, when Ratcliffe said that, it's like, dude, why aren't you everything? And I think that's one of the things that has to be done. CIA has to become completely clear. And I'm going to say this, and I don't want to get people riled up, but Senator Slotkin said a month ago, she's also CIA, just saying,
right,
that there would be violence in the streets,
right,
within 2 weeks. So it's really peculiar that both happen at the same time, and I don't believe in coincidence.
Tony, listen, we're going to come back to this, but we've got more to get to. It is 7:15 a.m. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. Let's go to the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Tony, I've been talking this morning about the law of large numbers and the issue of vetting. And, when you have the fog of war, as Clausewitz talks about, you've got chaos coming in. We had a lot of people who were probably vetted. This guy, it sounds like, was being vetted. But at the end of the day, vetting only gets us so far, doesn't it?
So in many instances, as you point out, this makes it impossible. And when you have tens of hundreds at once, it's impossible. And then plus, one of the things I said on Newsmax several times when this question came up is, at the time that we were bringing these people in, the very records we would have looked to vet them were not available. The Afghan government had fallen. So who do you go to? And one of the things people have to remember about Afghanistan's not like Minot, North Dakota. You have people who literally live and die moving no more than 20 miles from the spot on earth they're born.
Right.
This is tribal. It's very rural. It's not modern. So the very fact that we would look to have information to vet, it's just not available. And then you start presuming when they come in that they're here for good intent. Well, a lot of the time, and we said this at the time this happened, Andrew, there's going to be at least 5 to 10% of individuals coming through that pipeline who are essentially recruited to go into the pipeline by the bad guys, ISIS, Al Qaeda, and other and the Taliban. So there was a certain percentage that we presumed, that we professionals, and we were always asking, never getting an answer from the Biden administration, what is the status on this? And Rick Grinnell has been tweeting about this, about him bringing this up. So it's not like we didn't recognize this as an issue. The issue became why isn't anybody doing anything about it, since that there are numbers that we know to be pretty hard, and yet nobody's doing anything about it.
Tony, I want to pick up on the thread that you mentioned just before we took a little quick break for traffic and weather. You talked about Senator Lisa Slotkin, and I'm looking at your Twitter feed here, at @tspooky on x.com, where you have reposted a clip of her speaking at Brookings Institution about a month ago, predicting an incident involved in the National Guard, saying it would happen in 2 weeks, estimating that it would. Do you think she had some kind of intel that potentially in the intel community that this was happening, and that's why and this could have been a leak, her saying this, or do you think she just was really just suggesting it out of the blue?
So there's a great movie that I'm going to refer to that you're probably too young to remember, and I think Andrew will remember it.
Oh yes,
it's called The Siege. It stars Bruce Willis. And,
absolutely, Tony Shalhoub. By the way, I just saw Tony Shalhoub on the streets of New York City just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. He's a cool guy. So anyway, by the way, I almost got knocked over by one of those stars coming out of a store one time. But that Sex and the City girl, she almost knocked me over. But that's a different story for different days. Anyway, so the premise of that movie was individuals from the Middle East came here via CIA channels and then were essentially acting out being terrorists in New York City.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that maybe, I recommend people go back and look at that movie. It's a good movie. Denzel Washington's in it too. He's a good guy, by the way, in the movie, which is a good thing. So, but my point is that you have to start looking at everything. The timing is peculiar. Think about this. The timing is really peculiar because how long has the National Guard been in Washington? It didn't just get there.
Right.
How long has this individual been in the country? He didn't just get here. So when you have essentially a constellation of questions which really kind of start matching up and linking at a particular time after certain things are said, you'd be a fool not to investigate. That's all I'm saying.
As Brad Pitt says in a movie that Patrice may be too young to know, a movie called Inglourious Bastards, we call that suspicious.
I know that movie.
I know you do. I'm just messing with you. We call that suspicious. Yeah, hey, listen, you don't need to be Stonewall Jackson and you don't want to go fight in a basement. Yes, no, I get that, Tony. Listen, so glad you can join us to offer your expertise. How do folks find out more about the good work that you're doing?
Well, you just talked about X. That's a good place to start. And Colonel Tony Shaffer.
Congratulations to you, Tony Shaffer, one of the accounts that got liberated when Elon Musk took over X.
I know, and boy, oh boy, have I been tearing it up since then. I'm actually
Yes.
back to
Yes, you
where
have.
I stopped at. That's
Yes.
right. So thanks for having me, Andrew. I always enjoy the conversation. Thank you.
Always great, Tony. We got to get you
Thanks,
back.
Tony.
Got to get you on the podcast there. Listen, we
Thank
got
you.
so much more to get to. It's 7:23 on WMAL. Listen, so much more to come here on O'Connor and Company on this Black Friday.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
I'm Andrew Langer, sitting in with Patrice Onwuka today. In the next hour, we got KT McFarland joining us, Deputy National Security Advisor, former Deputy National Security Advisor, author of the book Revolution. We've got Chuck Thies, who's a D.C. political analyst, joining us. And, because we need to turn to the celebratory subjects in the next half hour. We got Steve Moore from Unleash Prosperity to talk about Black Friday. It's 7:30 on WMAL. We are back. Good morning, one and all. It is 7:37 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. A happy Friday to one and all, or as Patrice says,
Happy Black Friday.
yes, absolutely, Patrice. Thank you so very much for sitting in with me today. I'm so glad we could do this. There we go. So listen, we got a great show coming up. We got KT McFarland joining us in the next hour, as well as Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst. KT, of course, former Deputy National Security Advisor to Donald Trump. Joining us right now, so glad we can bring him on, one of my favorite people in all of Washington, D.C. His name is Steve Moore. He's an economist. He was the former senior economic policy advisor to President Trump, and he's the co-founder of Unleash Prosperity, a great organization. Steve, happy Thanksgiving, and let me tee this off. No, you know something. Tell us all about why Black Friday is so important. Let's go there.
Well, good morning, guys. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I
Yes.
did. We had a huge family, 24 people.
Wow.
Wow.
That was a big dinner. Let's see. Well, by the way, have you noticed it's not Black Friday anymore? It's Black Friday week.
Yes.
A month.
Yes. Right.
It started Monday. This is the big shopping season, obviously, and this is when this is the biggest shopping, what used to be the biggest shopping day, now the biggest shopping week of the year. And so it matters a lot to retailers that people go into the stores. And I don't know, Patrice, do you do it online or do you go to the stores?
I may or may not be scrolling during the breaks on some of my famous retailers right now. So definitely online.
Online, okay. I'm still kind of old-fashioned. I go to the mall.
It depends.
Oh,
For me, it depends, Steve.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that as Patrice is scrolling online for online shopping, my wife I know is listening right now. She's going to be horrified. I'm looking at puppies because I've asked for a puppy for Christmas. Anyway, no, but something. I think we're all doing a combination now, Steve. We wound up buying a Christmas present for a relative yesterday morning online because I saw a video. I'm like, that would be perfect for this person. So we're all doing and this is a good thing that we're doing combinations of this.
Well, one of the interesting things that's going on as an economist is that on the one hand, people keep complaining. I mean, you guys have seen this. The big issue, obviously, is affordability. Apparently people have less affordability now. And yet, if you look at the consumer spending over the last year, it's been off the charts. So there's a disconnect here. I mean, if people are having a problem with affordability, why are they flipping out the credit card everywhere they go and spending? So, look, my own view is the economy is a lot better than some of these polls show. We're seeing a lot of consumer spending. We're seeing huge amounts of investment in the economy. And I tend to be very bullish about this Christmas season, and especially for 2026 as we move into the new year.
Well, speaking of 2026, Steve, I mean, I know we're all looking forward to the impacts of the One Big Beautiful Bill kicking in. I mean, families are not going to have their taxes raised. And in fact, you're going to see increased deductions and savings, small businesses as well. But President Trump is floating the idea of eliminating the personal income tax at the federal level. I know at IWF, we are very supportive of states moving to eliminate their state income taxes. What's your take on the elimination of the federal income tax?
Boy, would that be a great Christmas present. I mean, listen, I think one of the greatest mistakes our country ever made was back in, I think it was around 1913 when we passed the income tax, and it was a huge huge mistake, and that's not the best way to. You don't want to tax virtue. You don't want to tax people for working. You don't want to tax people for saving. You don't want to tax people for creating businesses. So I've always favored, the more consumption tax model. And if we could do that, I mean, imagine for a minute if we could actually do that, where you wouldn't have to keep all your financial records. It would no longer be the government's business how much government you made. You just paid when you go to the store. We estimate you could do that for about a 15% national sales tax, and that would be a much better model. And Patrice, you just mentioned something important, that we have a real life experiment in this with the states. And so we have 9 states today that have no income tax. Gee, which states are those? Texas, Tennessee, Florida, New Hampshire, Nevada, and several others. And guess which states are booming today? Oh, yeah, Florida, Texas, Tennessee. Those happen to be the 3 fastest growing states. Do you think, Andrew, it's just a coincidence that the fastest 3 states growing are the ones that have no income tax?
No, I mean, and that's exactly it. Steve, listen, can you stick around for a couple of minutes? I don't want to take you away from
course,
Ann.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, because I want to talk to you about, we want to talk about tariffs. I want to talk to you, but we want to talk to you about regulation.
Oh, I hate tariffs.
But I heard Steve Forbes gave a speech up in New York a couple of weeks ago, sort of talking about how we can't take it all in a vacuum. But I want to talk to you. About this. You're going to stick around. Listen, we got so much more to come. It is 7:42 here on WMAL.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
And listen, with Dominic the Donkey, we are now officially kicking off the Christmas season here on O'Connor Company WMAL. We're joined by Steve Moore from Unleash Prosperity. And so Steve Forbes gave a speech up in New York a couple of weeks ago, which he talked about things that are being missed in terms of monetary policy and inflation, and started discussing why our tariffs, which everybody was roundly predicting were going to lead to great amounts of inflation, it hasn't done so. Break this down for us. I know that's the other Steve in economic circles, but I know you have some strong thoughts on this.
Yeah, so, by the way, Steve Forbes is one of my heroes, so I would never contradict anything Steve Forbes says because he's a genius. But along with Art Laffer and Larry Kudlow. And listen, so when it comes to tariffs, here is my view. If you put a tariff, Andrew and Patrice, on coffee beans, like we did on Brazilian coffee beans, guess what? The price of coffee will probably rise. And we saw that, right? It was a real-life experiment that the coffee prices rose because if you put a tax on something, some of that tax is going to be filtered right up to the final consumer. Same thing that happened with beef, and that's why people were so angry, like my wife, every time she'd go buy a steak.
Right.
But it does not, but a tariff does not necessarily raise the overall price level. And that's where I think people got confused. And that's why, by the way, Trump pulled back on the coffee. Did you see that a week or so ago?
Yeah.
He said, okay, people are angry about it. So listen, we have to have taxes. And this goes back to what we were just talking about before. Would it be better to have a tariff tax rather than an income tax? Yeah, I think that would be probably a good trade. If you put the tariff on top of the existing tax structure, then some things will rise in prices. And I think that's, Trump gets mad at me because, every time I say, there's Steve Moore, he's a great economist, but he doesn't like my tariffs. No, sir. I'm not a big fan of the tariffs. But overall, I think, look, I'm so bullish on the U.S. economy right now because we are seeing that, look, it's very simple, guys. This is the most pro-business president we've had in 40 years, and it makes a big difference.
Yes. So, Steve, I mean, it's interesting you said that because the Federal Reserve of San Francisco, I think a couple of weeks ago, put out a paper looking at 150 years of data, and they found that, tariffs are not necessarily inflationary, but they do kind of pull back the economic growth and can lead to job losses. That said, I mean, the Atlanta Fed is, saying, Q3 growth at 4%. So 4%. We're really robust. Do you think this is enough evidence and economic data for the Federal Reserve to give us one more interest rate cut by the end of this year?
They probably will. I'm of the view that we all, in the media and economists and Wall Street, way over obsess about what the Fed is going to do. There's this view out there that the Fed the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, is some kind of Wizard of Oz behind a curtain and can just push a button or pull a lever and make the economy better. Look, the Fed should do one thing and one thing only, Andrew, and I know you know what that is. It's to keep inflation under control.
Right.
That's their job. Not to care about climate change or not to try to wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if we could just print money and create jobs? Boy,
right.
What a wonderful world it would be.
Yes.
But that's not the way the world works. So I just want the Fed to keep the inflation steady and low and also defend the dollar. We are so blessed as a nation because we are the world reserve currency. And that's why I want the Fed to always talk about keeping our why do you have a currency? What's the point of having a currency? Oh, it's to be a store of value. Well, it can't be a store of value, Andrew and Patrice, if it's going up and down and up and down and up and down in value. So that's what I want the Fed to do. And whether they cut the interest rates by a quarter point or not, I'm here to tell you we're going to have a really strong economy next year. Why? Because all of this investment income is coming in the United States. Thank you, Donald J. Trump.
By the way, we're talking with Steve Moore. If you are from Unleash Prosperity, if you're not getting his daily email, you need to be getting that. It is a must read. Yeah. I read it every day. Steve, there's all of this
free.
And
it's free. Yes.
Yes. There is all of this talk about affordability. Mom Donnie ran on affordability. Others, Abigail Spanberger lying about the affordability of what was going on in Virginia. Yet Democrats are the ones who are constantly enacting policies to make things less affordable. How do we make things affordable, Steve Moore? How do we keep things affordable? What's the recipe?
Just get the government the hell out of the way. It's pretty simple. I'm pretty libertarian, but listen, I mean, you need to have a monetary policy that keeps the dollar stable, and that's why Steve Forbes is right. Steve wants to see a gold standard. I don't know if I would. I like that idea. Let's make the dollar as good as gold. That would stabilize the dollar. But I think the affordability crisis is. I know people are angry about some of the things about food and other things. Oh, and healthcare. By the way, isn't it interesting? The one thing that's rising the fastest is the Affordable Care Act. Oh, that worked out really well. That was quite a success, wasn't it? But look, we're going to be fine. This is a great weekend to go out shopping. Get the credit card out, folks, and spend, and do your part to stimulate the economy.
Well, great. Listen, Steve, give Ann a hug from all of us. So glad you can join us today. Take a little bit of time on Friday. Have a great Thanksgiving weekend, my friend.
Okay. You too, guys. Take care.
Take care. That was Steve Moore. Go and follow him if you're not following him on Twitter at Stephen Moore. That's Stephen with a PH. And the Unleash Prosperity is at Com4 Prosperity. I think they're also just at Unleash Prosperity now. Because Patrice,
so.
they dropped the committee part of it. Yes, it's now just Unleash Prosperity. I know that Tim and Tara and all my friends over there, Phil Kerpen, our good friend. I'm going to name drop for a while. I'm just going to name drop everybody I know at Unleash Prosperity. They're doing great work over there. Go and check them out. More to come too. It's 7:53 on WMAL. Listen, we need to have a better understanding as to what led us to this point where this Afghan refugee drove 40 hours across country and gunned down, brutally murdered one National Guardsman, critically wounded another one. We're going to be joined in the next hour by KT McFarland, former National Deputy Security Advisor to President Trump, CPAC board member. Also going to be joined by Chuck Fees, D.C. political analyst. We're also going to talk about Muriel Bowser running for mayor. It's 8 a.m. on WMAL.